Hi, my name is Christin, and today I'll present my work on the design and analysis of hardware-friendly pruning algorithms to accelerate DNNs at the edge. This was an early-stage work which I had done during my internship at Meta Reality Labs during last summer. So as we all know, DNN accelerators have different constraints in terms of memory and compute. On the memory side, we try to always reduce off-chip accesses to, for example, to very expensive DRAM, which requires orders of magnitude higher power and latency as compared to an on-chip access. So one way to tackle this is obviously to try to prune unnecessary model weights so that you can reduce memory footprint and, as a consequence, power consumption as well. We are also bound by compute constraints, and which means we have limitations in terms of how much battery power is available. As you all know, multiplication is one of the most power-hungry components in a DNN accelerator. So if you prune away unnecessary weights, that results in significant compute savings as well. So how do you prune? There are several ways of doing this with varying levels of accuracy compression trade-off. On the extreme left, you can do fine-grained pruning, which give you more compression without much accuracy loss. On the extreme right, you can do highly structured pruning, but then that's not very, that'll be very hardware friendly, but you may not have much accuracy. And you can do something in the middle, which we call a semi-structured pruning. This can be done at various levels of granularity, and you have trade-offs here in terms of how much compression you can achieve and how much will be hardware friendly. So before I dive into my talk, I want to make a few terminologies clear. So this is a simple example of a single layer of a network, a CNN layer, and like what we call as a kernel is one channel of a filter, and so as a consequence, a collection of kernels is basically a filter. And if you prune away a whole filter, the subsequent channel of the following layer and the subsequent kernel of the following filter will also get pruned out. So how do you prune a filter? So essentially, you have to look at, we need some estimate of filter's importance. And if you look at literature, there are so many ways of doing this. There's the L1 norm, L2 norm, and so on. So we chose two state-of-the-art techniques out there. So one is the Taylor-based approximation. What that does is basically it's a first-order approximation of a filter's gradient and its norm, and that's used to compute the importance of the filter. We also chose a second-order Hessian-based method to find out the insensitive filters in a model. So the question we want to ask is, do all of these methods create equally hardware-friendly models for a given hardware budget? We also try to learn a pruning method, like in the sense that we want to be able to learn the importance of a filter. So we have some scores out there which are trainable, which are trained during the model training process. We convert them into some binary mask, and that kind of corresponds to whether that filter is pruned or not. Please refer to our paper for more details on how exactly we do this. So since we target edge inference, we deployed our models on the ARM-based Ethos U55, and we use a batch size of 1 for our latency estimates. And the prune models are obtained by actually removing the useless filters and the subsequent kernels to create a smaller model. And these are some of the system parameters we assumed. So this plot shows the performance of ResNet 20 on the C400 dataset for various levels of sparsity levels. So the first takeaway from the graph on the left is that the same sparsity level in a prune model results in varied inference latencies, and this depends on the criteria. So why this happens is because different criteria may choose to prune different kernels differently, and as a consequence, it has different inference latencies. So for this model, what we find out is that at strict latency budget, the Hessian-based pruning gives the best model accuracy. So we tried this also on the ResNet 50 on ImageNet, and what we found out first was that many one-by-one kernels aren't pruned by the Taylor criteria as compared to the other methods, and this results in high latency. And as you know, so the reason for this is that, as you know, one-by-one kernels are not very efficient on edge hardware, and which is the root cause for this high latency. But because the Taylor criteria performs good on accuracy, so we find that at strict latency budgets, the Taylor-based criteria still performs marginally better in terms of overall accuracy. We also try to combine different structured and semi-structured pruning. So this is an example of how we combine filter and kernel pruning. So here we assume the supermask-based pruning, but really any criteria could apply. So the main motivation behind this is that once you prune away the useless filters, we again do another pruning stage where we remove all the useless kernels within a filter. And we find that we can compress the weights by additional 25% or so with less than 1% drop in inference accuracy. And this is assumed done using ResNet 20 on C400. So in conclusion, not all pruning criteria are equally hardware friendly. It really depends on the model architecture, for instance, what kind of kernels it has, the target edge hardware platform, and constraints such as the accuracy or latency budget. And we also provided some motivation for jointly considering structured and unstructured sparsity to reap additional benefits in hardware. And we showed an example of how we do mixed filter plus kernel pruning. So this is a very short presentation, and I've skipped over many details. So please feel free to go through the paper to get more actual details regarding the experiments. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.